So good morning everyone. Welcome to the lecture 3 of grid and cloud computing. So in this lecture we'll discuss a few things whatever I have not covered in the last class, and one of the new topic also we'll discuss in this today's class. So let us proceed for today's class. So last class we discussed about various technologies for network based system, right? In which I told you about two important things. One is called virtual machine. Another is I told you about virtual machine monitor, right? That virtual machine monitor is also called as hypervisor. So the main concept of going for virtual machine is that if you are having a physical machine and that physical machine is used by a single user, at the same time another user, if another user want to use that system, then it is not practically possible for that user to use that system, right? Means one user is interacting with the system, but other user cannot interact with that system because at that time the system is busy, right? So in order to solve this issue, what we are doing, we are creating various virtual machines on top of the physical machine, right? So if you go for this particular slide, you can see there are four diagrams are there. First one is called as virtual machine multiplexing. See here, in the bottom level, you have storage, just like your hard disks or yes, hard disk, that is your temporary permanent storage, right? Or you have some hardwares in your physical machine. Above the hardware, we are creating the virtual machine monitor. Virtual machine monitor or hypervisor monitors various operating systems. So these operating systems you can call it is a guest operating system. Above the guest operating system, you can run numerous applications, right? So try to understand the same computer resources, the same storage used to buy two different operating system, right? Like whenever you switch on your computer system, it is asking you whether you want to go for Windows or you want to go for Linux, right? So Windows and Linux are the two operating systems that is installed in your computer system, and these operating systems takes different part of the memory, right? That's why they are. It is asking that whether you want to switch to Linux or you want to switch to Windows if you have installed both operating system. So what this virtual machine is telling, virtual machine says that whenever you switch on your computer system, let's say it will open your Windows system, right? It Windows operating system. Then in Windows operating system, you can install a software called VMware, VMware. By using VMware, I can install Linux operating system above the Windows system. So what is the advantage? The space whatever taken by the Linux is not a separate part, that is not a separate thing, that space is occupied by Windows. In the previous case, Windows and Linux operating system, whenever you are clicking Windows or Linux, they are taking different part of the memory, right? But if you are using VMware or virtual machine concept, what you are doing, on top of a particular operating system, you are creating another operating system. As you are creating another operating system, the resources, whatever there in this operating system, generally you call it a guest operating system and this one is a host operating system. So whatever resources the guest operating system is taking, that is a part of your host operating system. So as you can see, multiple operating system I can create by applying the virtualization technology or by creating the virtual machine. So that is the first diagram. Second diagram says that, for example, whatever application I am running in the whatever application I am running here, that application I want, that application is, let's say, completed. Okay, the work is now completed. What I am doing, that application now, this application, whatever complete, the application, whatever you completed, that you can transport to a storage, right? So this is no more required because all the works are done. So what we will do, that operating system and that application, we are transporting a permanent storage like hard disk. So that is called as VM suspension. Or that VM is, let's say that VM work is completed or the VM is not responding, right? Or the VM is asking some resources that is not sufficient here. So what I am doing, I am suspending that virtual machine. And after suspending, I can store that virtual machine into a permanent storage. That is the second thing. After some time, I have seen that the resources, whatever demanded by this particular application, which is suspended, that can be run in some other system, right? Or some other system means maybe in the same storage multiple different systems are using the same storage, or maybe different systems as well. For example, I'll separate this storage here. Whatever storage used in this particular part, it is different from the storage used in this particular part. Okay, so what I will do, I can resume my work in another virtual machine monitor, right? So what, as you can see, whatever application we have suspended in figure B, that application I am running in another virtual and on top of another virtual machine monitor, because here your resources is sufficient, but here your resources is not suspended, not sufficient. That's why you are suspended and stored in a storage. Similarly, you can migrate also. You can migrate, like you know that whenever you are changing a particular university, university is giving you a migration certificate from moving from one university to another university. So if you feel that whatever application is running here, that application will, if that application will execute here, then it will be much better. Much better means whatever the flexibility available here, that flexibility is not available here. So what you can do, you can migrate a particular application that is there in one virtual machine monitor to another virtual machine monitor. So these are the four operations that you can apply to virtual machine, different virtual machine, by applying the concept of multiplexing, suspension, provision, and migration. Next, that I have explained here, that virtual machine, first time you have seen that it is multiplexed by various hardware, right? Then next, in the second figure, it is suspended and stored in a stable storage. Third part, whatever suspended, the VM is suspended, that is resumed. Fourth part, it is migrated from one hardware to another hardware system, right? In this way, you can apply various operation to the virtual machine. Now, virtual machine, if you compare the utilization of virtual machine with your physical machine, if you see the comparison of in terms of server utilization, you will find the server utilization is, if you go for physical machines, it is only 5 to 15%. Because for example, if you see your desktop or laptop, you are not using your desktop laptop for 24 hours, right? You are only using, let's say, per day 4 hours only. So rest 20 hours, the system is completely idle. So if I'll ask what is the utilization, you will say 4 by 24 is my utilization, right? So this is multiplied by 100, you will get in percentage, right? Similarly, if you are using this VMware increase the utilization from 5 to 10, 15% to 60 to 80%. That's why VMware or virtualization technology or virtual machine is much more popular in distributed system, or you can say specifically cloud computing system. So here I have just, so I want to just show you some of the statistics of the data center. Try to understand what do you mean by data center. Like I told you, your Gmails are stored in the Google data center, and let me write Google data center as GDC, Google data center. So a data center is nothing but a very big place in which a numerous servers are there. For example, a data center, if you go for a typical data center, a data center is having 50,000 to 80,000 servers. So in average, you can say 50,000 servers are there in a data center. Imagine a particular university may have two server, but if you go to the data center is having 50,000 servers, right? So in order to create a data center, as you know, the number of users are drastically increasing. The number of Gmail IDs are there in today, it will be increased tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, it will more increase. Like after 5 years, it is in a very top position, because people are creating email IDs for their personal use. It may happen that one user is having multiple email IDs as well. That's why any cloud service provider like Google, they are expanding various data centers. So if you focus into a data center, here I want to show you from 96 to 2013. If you see, the bottom part is called as server spending. Okay, how much cost you have spent to purchase a particular server, that indicates this one. If you see, more or less the value is same from 96 to 2013. This is because whatever hardware cost is there, hardware cost is also decreasing. Now previously hardware cost is very high, but today hardware cost is very low, right? Similarly, if you see the management cost is the second one. Second one is management cost. If you compare from 96 to 2013, 2013 is more, but if you see 96 is, it is less. Similarly, third parties, if you want to run a computer system, you need cooling, right? Just like it is recommended that each and every computer system should run in a temperature, it a room temperature, let's say 25 degrees Celsius. This is the recommended temperature, right? Similarly, as you are running 50,000 servers, you require cooling, right? It may be a water cooling, it may be air condition, it may be anything. So if you see, the cost is in from 96 is the third part. You can see in the up to 2013 is also drastically increasing. So if you compare these three parameters, you can see maximum cost is incurred in the management cost, right? Managing the data center is the peak one in comparison to these three parameters. Similarly, if you see in the bottom one is called your physical server. This line is indicating your physical server and this line is indicating your logical server. As you can see, logical server is drastically increasing from 2007 to 2013. So that's why logical server has more importance than the physical server, is logical server also uses the resources of physical server only, right? Don't think that logical server means it is not exist, right? Logical server takes resources of the physical server, but the only advantage is that physical server, the number of user is limited, but in the logical server you can expand to as many number as possible based upon your hardware, right? That's why data center, the main part is your maintaining, how you will maintain these logical server in order to accommodate more user. That is very much important in the data center perspective. So if you go through a data center perspective, just I want to tell you here, there are 43 million servers are there in world in 2010. Now it is, imagine now in one decade has crossed. So you can imagine how many servers are there in all over the world. So if you go for 2009 IDC report, it shows that 30% of the cost of a data center is spent towards the purchasing the IT equipment. For example, I want to now whatever data centers Google has, that data center is not sufficient. So what Google will say, Google will do, Google will purchase more data center, right? If Google will purchase more data center, 30% cost is spent towards whatever money you will spend towards a data center, the 30% cost you will spend towards the purchasing the computers, right? Purchasing the servers, purchasing the network components, like that. And 33% is also responsible for cooling the environment. Imagine, this is 30% for the maintenance, 30% to purchase the infrastructure, like you are purchasing your computer system, but 33% means more you require for cooling, because these many data centers are, if are running in a particular place, imagine how much carbon dioxide generated or how much heat is generated in that particular place. And 18% is required for your UPS in case of sudden power background, so you require UPS, and 9% is required for computer room air conditioning, 7% for the power distribution, lighting the data center, and the transformer cost. Apart from these, there are some other costs are there which is not listed here. But this is a typical idea how a data center is there and how much cost a cloud service provider is spending to create a particular data center. So in today's class, I'll talk about the system models. What are the system models for distributed and cloud computing? So as you can see here there is a classification of the parallel system and distributed computing system is there. So I told you distributed system, computers are not present in a single place, right? So the computers are distributed in all over the world. The reason is that if a computer is failed or if a server is failed or if a data center is failed due to natural calamity like tsunami or something like that, then in that area the data center will be damaged, right? Other places, the other places, whatever data center is there, that will be not be damaged. That is the objective of going for a distributed system. So distributed system is also doing the parallelism, right? That's why parallel distributed system is much more popular irrespective of the various computing platform like cloud computing or grid computing, or in the previous you have cluster computing. So in this particular table, you can see there are 4 components. First one is called as computer cluster. So here, computer cluster. What do you mean by computer cluster? I told you in a particular lab, you have 30 computer systems, right? These 30 computer systems are having same configurations, right? These 30 computer system is same configuration, same hard disk size, same RAM size, same processor. So these nodes are called as your homogeneous nodes, right? And these 30 computers, how you are connected these 30 computer systems? Through a local area network, or in some case you can use system area network, in some case you can use wide area network. Based upon the computer location, you can choose whether to use just SAN or LAN or WAN, or you can say MAN also, right? So by using this 30 computer system, if a work is assigned to you, you can divide the work into 30 parts, and small parts you can run in a single computer system. So what is the advantage? The advantages is that you can get high performance computing, HPC. And I also mentioned you, cloud is focusing on HPC as well as the current trend that is called HTC. So in comparison to HPC, STC, cloud demands the HTC. So HTC says that how many work you can do in a time unit, let's say in second, or in say in a particular minute, in a particular year, or in a particular day, right? So we are instead of focusing the HPC, we nowadays focusing on the HTC system. So if you go for the computer cluster, one of the popular things are called like Google search engine. They are using computer cluster. Sunblade is an example of your computer cluster, right? Similarly, if you come to the second one is called as peer-to-peer network. Peer-to-peer network, and if you go to the peer-to-peer network, for example, this is my one peer, this is another peer, they want to exchange some information, right? So they want to exchange some information, these two computer systems. Note that in peer-to-peer system, these computers are autonomous in nature. What do you mean by autonomous? Autonomous means if a computer is failed due to something, or some hardware fault happen, or some crash, the computer is crashed, then what happen? It will not affect to the second computer system, right? So they are flexible. That's why they are mentioning that is a flexible. So anybody can join in the network, or anybody can remove from a particular network at any point of time. So whenever you are sharing your load, you have to make sure that whatever load you are assigning to a particular computer system, if it is that computer system fail also, it should not be affect to your work. So what you will do, instead of assigning your work to a single computer system, you will assign a single work to multiple computer system, right? That is the objective of peer-to-peer network. And if you see, this is a popular that BitTorrent, you are using BitTorrent, right? BitTorrent is an example of your peer-to-peer network. So here we are using autonomous client nodes, right? Third one is your data grid, or it is also called as computational grid. So what happened? Grid, the name suggests grid. I told you earlier also, grid consists of heterogeneous system. Heterogeneous means even in a lab, if 30 computer systems are there, these 30 computer systems are having different configuration, not in the same configuration. So as you want to achieve a big power, so you have to what you have to do? You have to combine more computer system. If you want to, I'll say you combine 1000 computer system, so it is practically not possible to get 1000 computer system of the same configuration. That's why we are going for a configuration of grid. Okay, so it may be centralized. Sometimes you can say grid is decentralized, sometimes it is decentralized as well, right? If everything is monitored by a single place, then that is called a centralized system. If they are distributed over various places, then you can call it a distributed system, right? So if you see, TeraGrid is an example of your data and computational grid, right? Similarly, the last one is our cloud platform. In cloud platform, what we are saying, whatever resource you want to give, you give in the form of virtualized form. As you are giving virtualized form, so what happened? The utilization is also increased, the resource utilization is also increased, and the number of users using that resource is also increasing. So these concepts are based upon one concept that is called service level agreement. So as you are studying software engineering, you may heard about SRS document. If you have not studied, then you may it will be covered in your topic. So SRS stands for, that is called a software requirement specification document. So SRS document says that whenever you are building a particular software, like whenever you will go for industry, suppose you want to build a particular software for X company, right? Your company name is, let's say, Z. You want to build a particular software for X company. So before building that particular software, X and Z will sign in a particular document. That document shows what kind of software you are developing, what is the delivery period, and what is the cost of that particular software. So that document is called as SRS document, also called as software requirement specification document. In line with SRS, in cloud we are using SLA document, that is called a service level agreement document. What SLA document says, that SLA is a contract between the cloud consumer. Cloud consumer is, we are the cloud consumer, right? We are using Gmail. Gmail is provided by Google, right? So Google is our service provider. So there should be some contract. So whenever you are creating an email ID or whenever you are registering a particular website, what it is showing, I have understood all the terms and conditions. So that is a kind of SLA you are signing before using the services of any provider. So if you see here, the resources in cloud case, the resources can be dynamically provisioned. At any point of time, you can provision the resources. You cannot say that it is night 2, I cannot solve the request. You cannot say like that, right? But okay, so the resources will be available 24 into 7, and the resources will be provisioned to the user as per their need. So if you see the example of cloud computing that Google already we have discussed, Google App Engine, IBM, Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, these are the popular cloud service provider. Cloud service provider is providing platforms to the users. Now, if you want to make how it is connected, if you focus on the cluster computing, so see here, there are multiple clusters are there. If you see, let's say this is a server 0, this is a server 1, server 2, like that there are n servers are there. Total server is n plus 1 servers are there. So these n plus 1 server along with the IO devices, input output devices like keyboard, mouse, or you can say printer, and a disk array is nothing but your hard disk kind of thing where you can store the data. So these cluster, this is a cluster means it is combining, you are combining various servers into a single unit. So they may be connected through a SAN or a local area network or an AS network, so that these can be connected to the internet through a gateway. That is, gateway is a device to connect from a cluster to a particular internet. Like in, you have studied in computer network is something called router, something is called your hub, something called switch. Similarly, here we are using gateway to communicate a particular network with the internet, so that internet can be provided to this particular system. Because user is going to use the internet to solve some request, right? As a user, I'll request the resources to the internet. Then indirectly, a particular service provider redirect the request to a particular cluster of servers and execute my work, and the work is again returned to the internet or the service provider, and the service provider return that work to that particular user. So this is the overall model whatever we are using. So what is our objective? The main objective is that low latency. The latency should be as less as possible. Latency means delay. So whenever you are opening your Gmail, what you want, whenever you are giving username and password, it should open as faster as possible, right? So low latency is our goal to in order to get a particular service. It should be low latency, and it can be achieved through a high bandwidth. If the bandwidth is very high, then the latency is reduced, right? The delay is reduced. But if the bandwidth is not sufficient, then you will get delay in your service, right? So if you are going for SAN, one of the example of SAN is called Mirinet. Mirinet is an interconnection, like you know LAN cable, right? LAN case we are using Ethernet cable, or you can go for fast Ethernet, or you can go for gigabit Ethernet. The only difference between Ethernet, fast Ethernet, and gigabit Ethernet is their speed, right? So whatever wire you are using, to communicate from connect to various computer systems, so their speed is different. So like that, if you want to use SAN, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you can use SAN, you can use LAN, or you can use NAS. So SAN is an example, Mirinet is an example of your SAN. Mirinet is very famous. It's providing, let's say, 100 Mbps, if I am not wrong, it is giving 100 Mbps speed. Similarly, Ethernet is providing some speed, right? Fast Ethernet is providing gigabit Ethernet is providing 1 Gbps speed. Like that, different interconnections networks are there. They are connecting one computer system with another computer system. You can also go for NAS. NAS stands for Network Data Storage, in order to connect cluster of the servers, right? So if you are using cluster, what kind of interconnection network we are using? We can use Mirinet, right? If you are using SAN, you are using Mirinet. If you are using LAN, the current one is the gigabit Ethernet we are using, so that we will get Gbps speed, or you can also use InfiniBand switches. So these are the interconnection network. Interconnection network means you are connecting various computers into a single unit. For that, you require interconnection network. So nowadays, a very popular term is called as virtual private network. That is called VPN. So VPN, what VPN is doing? VPN connect the cluster to the internet. Like I told you, here we are using a gateway, right? So this gateway, whatever we are using, that is called as virtual private network gateway, which will connect a source, a cluster of servers to the internet, right? You can also use router, you can also use some connection device. Their speed are different and their application is different. So with respect to this particular architecture, we are using gateway. So as you know, cluster. We are using the homogeneous node. Sometimes cluster is also loosely coupled. If it is loosely coupled, it indicates that in what terms it is loosely coupled. Loose coupled means if 30 computer systems are there in your lab, the operating system, whatever installed in each computer system, is maybe different, right? Or it may happen that they have different copy of the operating system, or it may happen that these computers are connected to a server. This server is providing operating system to this computer system, right? In that manner, you can say clusters are also loosely coupled, right? And there is another important concept in cluster, that is called a single system image. Last class also I told you about single system image. Single system image says that if a user want to communicate to a cluster or a grid, it will communicate to a single computer system. Okay, and that computer is responsible to provide the result to that particular user. So user is not aware that how many computers, like in previous slide I told you, there is a cluster of servers are running behind to provide the service. So this particular service, the user don't want to see, right? User don't want to go to the complexity of the infrastructure. User will say that I have submitted to this computer system. This computer system should give result to me. So for user, the entire system is treated as a single system. That's why single system image is an important property of your cluster computing system. So it makes illusion to a particular user that the entire thing is a single machine. So there is no complexity in the infrastructure as per user point of view. So in order to support this single system image, what we need? We need middleware. Middleware is nothing but, just I told you, like SLA is a contract. So middleware is a component which abstract the user that this computer, the entire setup is a single system, right? So that's why, so in order to support SSI, people are using middleware, right? So if you are using cluster, there are some communication software you can use. I'll tell you, I'll give a demo also in some day, right? Parallel virtual machine, that is called as PVM, parallel virtual machine, or called as MPI, message passing interface, are the two communication software used by the cluster compute, used in the cluster computing. So next is, okay, before that we'll make one poll. So all of you please answer this one. Okay, I'm stopping the poll. Okay. What is the correct answer?
SAN, sir.
LAN. Okay. So what is the example of LAN? I told you Ethernet. It may be Ethernet. It may be gigabit Ethernet. It may be fast Ethernet as well, right? So MIRINET is used in SAN. So coming to the next, okay. Okay. So whenever you are designing some cluster, right? If you want to decide that in your institute, you are going to design a cluster, right? So we'll go to the cloud computing later. First one is your cluster, then one is grid, then one is your cluster, right? So if you want to go to the cluster, what kind of critical issues and implementation issues you will get, that is listed in this particular table. First example is availability of the system. Availability shows that in a 24 hours, how much time, right? How much time or what percentage of time the cluster is available, right? If the cluster is available 24 hours, then you can say that is called as a high availability system. Yes, yes.
So I haven't received my poll, sir. Question is not displayed at my screen.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
You attend the second poll. Okay, no
Okay, sir.
problem. Okay, so that is called as high availability system, right? 24 hours if something is available, what you will say? It is a high availability system, right? Next is you have to ensure that there is a hardware fault tolerance. Try to understand what is hardware fault tolerance. For example, your hard disk is failed. One of the hard disks of your participating computer system in a cluster is failed. So you have to ensure that even if there is a failure, it will not affect to client's work. If client's work will be not be affected, then you can claim that the system is fault tolerant. And also we have discussed about the single system image, and whatever computers are participated in a particular cluster, so you have to ensure that all the computer system participated in the cluster, they may have efficient communication. They must communicate with each other in a very fast. Suppose I want to first computer want to send some data to second computer, then they should be connected in such a fashion that there should be an efficient communication, right? Then cluster-wide job management. Generally what happens? A job is assigned to a particular cluster which can be break down into small tasks, right? Let's say it is a task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, right? Task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4. So the cluster should execute a job by decomposing it into several tasks. Okay, so that a single task can be assigned to a computer system. Then is dynamic load balancing. Dynamic load balancing says that, for example, you have two computer systems, you have to ensure that both computer systems are equally loaded. You cannot assign a 2 GB work to the first computer system and 2 MB work to the second computer system. If you do so, then 2 GB system is overloaded, so it may be chance that this system is crashed and the second system is idle. That's why dynamic load balancing is a critical issue whenever you are designing cluster. Then there is a scalability concept. Scalability says that as and when required, you can expand the number of machines. And as and when it is not required, you have to reduce into a small quantity. So that type of critical issues may be provided, or may be considered whenever you want to design a cluster system. So with respect to that, these are the functional characterization and feasible implementations. So we'll discuss in the cloud also what are the different parts are there. So I am skipping this part. You have to remember these various features that are associated with the design issues and feasible implementation. Now, coming to the grid computing infrastructure, if you come to grid computing instead of cloud cluster computing, if you want to go to grid computing, here the computers are having heterogeneous in nature. Heterogeneous means they may not having different configurations. So earlier there is a electricity grid. So if you visit a dam, right, dam where electricity is generated, you will see the poles, electric poles is organized in a grid fashion. They are equal distance from each other and they are storing electricity. So by using that concept, the electricity grid in computer term, computational grid or data grid was invented. So this computational grid, what it is providing? it is providing the computational resources, the computational power. So if you assign a very big task to you, or you have written a very big program you want to execute, the computational grid will provide you enormous power to execute that program. For example, I'll tell you, you want to execute a 2 GB program into your computer system. It is difficult because 2 GB is very big. So if you are using computational grid, in a fraction of a second, you will get your result, right? Similarly, computational grid also supports various softwares, various middlewares, and provide various sensors to collect the data as well. That's why computational grid is much more powerful, and it is used whenever there is a big. If you want to run a scientific application, you want to run an engineering application, or if you want to use your own application where you require very big energy, big power, right, or big storage, you can go for computational grid. So here, computer does not mean our desktop or laptop, right? Computer may be a workstation, it may be a server, it may be a cluster, even if it is a supercomputer as well. So in order to satisfy the services, satisfy the requirements of a particular user, you may use supercomputer as well to execute the work assigned by a particular user, right? So everything is considered as a virtual organization, because whenever you are requesting, like Gmail, where your email is stored, you do not know, right? For you, this Gmail is nothing but a virtual organization, because you don't have any idea where emails are stored, whether it is stored in a safe place or not, whether all emails are deleted or it is saved. You do not have any idea, right? So that is the security features provided by the cloud service provider, right? So that it will not delete anything, somebody should not hack the Gmail, right? So entire thing from a user perspective is a virtual organization. So similarly, a very famous project that is called as SCTI at home. It is a voluntary project. What is the use of this project? This project determines whether there is a life in the galaxy or not, right? Whether life exists in a galaxy or not. That is the objective of SCTI at home. So SCTI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So it is a very big project in which millions of computer systems are gathered together to provide the services, because it is a scientific and engineering application. In order to run this scientific and engineering application, you require 1 million computer system. So if you require, millions of computer system, not 1 million, millions of computer system. So if you want millions of computer system, it is not practically possible to purchase millions of computer system. So what you will do, you will go for the grid computing system, right? Similarly, US, the TeraGrid, I also mentioned in the previous slide, something called TeraGrid. TeraGrid is used in the United States. Okay, that is used by National Science Foundation in order to execute some work. Similarly, in Europe, people are using enabling grids for e-science in Europe. That is called as EGEE. Is used in the Europe. Like China also uses a grid that is called a China grid. So what they are doing? They are combining. They are voluntarily collecting the computer systems, virtual computer powers, right, of 1 million or millions of computer systems, and run application like SCTI at home. So SCTI stands for your Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So as you can see in this particular diagram, your telephone, your camera, or your TV, or your computer system, laptop, these handheld devices can be connected and can be participated in a grid to provide enormous power to the user, right? For example, I want to run a satellite application. For that, I need, let's say, 15 computer system. 15 is very small, so I am taking very small 15 to convince you. 15 computer systems. So you may have different computer systems, or you may have a processing power in each and every component. So you have to gather this power and provide that support to the satellite project, so that the satellite project can run some kind of application in your handheld devices, so that a big computation power can be achieved. So if you see such projects, billion and billion computer systems are participated, and these billion computer systems are not belongs to a particular organization, not belongs to a particular user. So many people are voluntarily providing the services to run this kind of project. Okay. Now, if you see, there is a difference between the computational grid, computational and data grid, with the P2P grid. Computational grid is a distributed architecture. It may be distributed, it may be a centralized approach also, right? But grid indicates that everything should be distributed in nature, right? So if you see the Terra grid, whatever we have discussed for US, Terra grid of US or China, China also launched China grid. Okay, UK also in a launched e-science grid. These are part of your computational grid. But this SCTI at home is belongs to your P2P grid. In the next slide, I'll tell you what is the basic difference between a client server architecture and a peer-to-peer architecture. Try to understand in client server architecture what happens. As a client, I am requesting Google server through internet that I want to view my Gmail. So what happens? Client always requests services to the server and server always provides services to the client. So if you imagine, suppose the server is crashed or server is no more available or server is down. So what happens? You will not get your services, right? That is a demerit with the client server network model. But whenever you go to the peer-to-peer model, there is no primary and there is no secondary. There is no client and there is no server. Each computer can be treated as a client, each computer can be treated as server as well. So if a computer is failed here, it will not affect to client 3 and client 4. In that manner, P2P system is much more better in comparison to your client server system, right? So if you go for distributed system, generally distributed systems are called as your client server architecture. But nowadays, the distributed model are implemented in P2P model. Because why it is not moved to P2P model? Because P2P model, if you see that all the systems are autonomous in nature, right? They are independent in nature. So that if a computer system is failed, it will not affect to other computer system. But here what happens? If server is crashed, the entire network is crashed, right? So if you want to go for P2P system is having two layers. One is called as physical level layer, another is called as logical level layer. Logical level layer is also called as overlay network. So next slide I'll show you these two levels. So as you can see, there are two levels. One is your physical links. Your handheld devices are connected to the physical link, and this is your overlay network, right? So P2P system can be act as a client as well as can be act as a server because they are autonomous system. Imagine if there is a system is autonomous in nature, they can join in the system at any point of time, they can leave in the system at any point of time. That is the flexibility. But in the client server, if a client is joined, a load is added to the server. But if a client is removed, then that is a load is reduced in the server. So if server is not available, then only it will affect to the client. But in the peer-to system, if a system is crashed, then that will not affect to other computer system. So there is no master-slave relationship. Master-slave means there should not be a superior. All computers are having same status. You cannot say that one computer is powerful, one computer is less powerful, right? So there is no central coordination. There is no centralized database in the P2P system. So what the overlay network says, how it is different from this IP network. For example, I want to compute these 5 handheld devices or these 5 computer systems. So I will only take these 5 systems and establish a virtual link in the overlay network and provide the service. So no need to connect all the computer systems in order as used in the IP network to provide the services. So overlay networks takes a selected things and create a virtual link to provide the services. So this is the figure, that is P2P network is divided into two layers. One is your IP network layer, another is called is your overlay network layer, right? In the physical network is a temporary network. Ad hoc means a temporary network. Temporary network says that any point of time a system may out, any point of time the system may join. So what kind of protocols are used in the physical network? You are aware of TCP/IP protocol. You may have aware of OSI layer, OSI ISO reference model in which 7 layers are there. Later it is reduced to 5 layer or 4 layer in TCP/IP model, or you can use network access identifier protocol in the physical network. Okay, as I mentioned, the size and topology is always dynamically varying, right? Why it is varying? Because any point of time the computer system may join, any point of time the computer system may leave as well. But if you want to go for overlay network, it is a virtual network in which each physical machine, whichever is participating in the overlay network, is assigned with an ID so that they can communicate each other to provide the service. So whenever a new computer is joining with the overlay network, it is providing with the ID, and that ID is a unique one. Whenever a computer system is removing or is leaving from the overlay network, the corresponding ID is removed. In this way, overlay network provides the services in a grid or cluster computing system. So if you concentrate on the overlay network is again two types. It may be unstructured random graph, because any point of time if anybody can join and leave, so it is not a complete graph. It may be a random graph, we can say. In sometimes few computer systems, they committed that they will be available for 1 hour. So in that case, you can go for a static network, or you can say structured network. If something is static or structured, if you know that this computer system will be live for 1 hour, then what you will do, you can decide that who will communicate with whom. But if the system is a random graph, then it is practically not possible to say that suppose the computer is sending request to this computer system, as it is a random graph, what happens, this computer system may not be available whenever the data reaches to this particular computer system, right? In this manner, the overlay network is two types. So now, if you see, P2P network is classified into 4 different groups. First group is called as distributed file sharing. So what do you mean by distributed file sharing? One computer is sending the data to another computer system, applying the file sharing mechanism. What kind of file it can store? It can store music file, it can store video file, or it can store MP3 file, right, to a computer system. That is called distributed file sharing, right? So in many institutes, particularly in the hostel, whenever you are want to search a particular movie, right? So there are so many applications are there. Like one is called as DC++. So in DC++, there is a search bar. Okay, in that search bar, whatever movie you are interested, you can search that particular movie. So if that movie is available in 3 computer systems, right? Imagine 3 computers are connected to DC++. So many computers are connected to DC++, and and whatever movie you are searching in your hostel network, hostel intranet, these 3 computers are having that particular movie. So you can download this movie at a time from 3 sources, so that the transport time is drastically reduced, right? So if you see such systems, these GNU Tela and Napster, right, BitTorrent are the example of distributed file system. But later point of time, people want to do MSN, just like Skype chatting. Now Zoom is there, right? Many online platforms are there, which is not provided by the distributed file sharing mechanism, that is provided by a collaborative platform. If you use collaborative platform, you can use Skype, you can use any instant messaging from one computer system to another computer system. So Skype is an example of the second system. In order to improvise the collaborative platform, we are using distributed P2P computing. Like I told you, SCTI at home or Genome at home. It is another scientific and engineering applications, in which, as I mentioned here, see here, 3 million internet hosts are active at the same time. In each and every second, 3 million internet host machines are live, and none of the machines are owned by SCTI at home. None of the machine is owned by SCTI home. This is a completely voluntary job, right? If you want to participate into SCTI at home, I mentioned this platform. You install BOINC in your computer system. BOINC stands for Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing. Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing. This platform holds around 50 projects, and these 50 projects are called as voluntary projects. This platform provides the grid computing environment. One of the 50 projects is your SCTI home. So you can also give your computer resources to SCTI at home. So whenever there is a requirement of any resource, they will run some instance in your computer system. Using BOINC platform, you can do this, right? So that is called a distributed P2P platform. Even if that there is a P2P platform, that is nothing but another very important scientific application that is running on P2P platform, that is called Fighting Air at Home, okay, or JXTA or .NET. These are the P2P platform which provided to the services using the public resources. So these are the 4 groups that is available in the P2P network. So let me launch the second poll. Can you answer the second question? You have 30 seconds. What is the answer?
Search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yes, SCTI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Okay.
Question is also not displayed on mobile, sir.
Maybe some issue happened. I do not know. It is showing you are logged in from another device. Your polling session is inactive. I don't know why it is so. Okay, leave it. Otherwise, it will not come in. Okay. So see here, we'll discuss another 2-3 minutes, right? So P2P computing, there are many challenges with respect to the P2P computing, right? Like first one is, there are 3 types of heterogeneity problem is there. Heterogeneous means one computer configuration is different from another computer configuration. So in terms of hardware, the computer systems are different. In terms of software, the computer systems are different. In terms of network requirements, also computer systems are different. But if they are homogeneous system, if they are homogeneous systems, then you can claim that all the hardware configurations, software configurations, and network requirements are same, right? And if you go for a distributed P2P applications, you have to focus on 3 design objectives. First one is data locality. Data locality says that if you, as the computers are not present in a single location, so data should be available in a local place so that you can execute some kind of work in a particular system, right? Network proximity, how one computer system is close to another computer system, right? That is indicating the proximity of the network, or interoperability. These 3 design objectives you have to focus whenever you are talking about distributed P2P applications. And P2P performance is always affected by the routing efficiency and self-organization. What is routing efficiency? For example, you want to transfer data from a source to destination. As source and destinations are not directly reachable, a source cannot be directly reachable to D because there is no direct communication between source to destination. So you have to take the help of few intermediate node. Source should communicate with this intermediate node should communicate to this intermediate node, then this intermediate node will communicate to the destination. So this is a kind of routing mechanism. Similarly, there may be some other intermediate systems are there by which also you can transport the data, right? Like I will communicate the data like this. If you are following in that manner, then you can say you have to decide which you have to decide which which path is the best path in the system, right? Which whether to first path or to follow the second path, right? So that is called as routing. From the source to destination, you have to decide routing. So P2P performance sometimes affected by the routing efficiency, and in the way they are organized with each other. And sometimes what happens, a computer system may not be available also. So you have to ensure that even if there is a computer system is not available, your performance would not be affected, right? And you have to ensure that while if a system is failed, whatever responsibility is given to this computer system, if I am giving that responsibility in other computer system, I have to make sure that this system is not overloaded, for which I require load balancing mechanism. Okay. Similarly, as the computer systems are voluntary one, as I mentioned, SCTI at home, in which 3 million computer systems are live at the same time. So in this project, the peers are connected voluntarily. You can participate, I can participate, anyone can participate. So there may be a lack of trust among the peers because the peers do not know each other. So there may be a lack of trust, which may lead to security violation, which may lead to privacy violation, which may lead to copyright violations as well. So we'll stop here. In the next class, I'll start from the cloud computing over the internet and overview of cloud computing in the next class.